Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
I am very excited to talk about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm just a bit self-centered in this, but I feel like if you were like a kid in probably the late 80s and 90s, like you
Mhm.
loved Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
I loved me some Indiana Jones as a kid. Still love Indiana Jones. Great films, great movie, great character.
Yeah.
Everything else, Nathan Drake, Lara Croft, you're second to Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. So when this was announced, I was pumped, especially
Yeah.
Machine Games, who did the Wolfenstein franchise. They made this. And so you've got a great studio, great character,
Mhm.
and they fucking nailed it. They nailed it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this game so much. It's incredible. Do have some issues with it here and there, but I just need to start with how much they nailed this. And I talked about this with Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws nailed like this world, like feeling like you're in a Star Wars world. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I'm on this planet. I feel like I'm in a Star Wars story. I feel like all this stuff. This did kind of something similar where it's like I feel like I am Indiana Jones right now. I feel like I'm Indiana Jones, and this is the perfect version of Indiana Jones.
So I can see like a Star Wars game or like other IPs with like really obvious uh iconography in it. So like Star Wars has stormtroopers or what it's like or like cantinas. And like I can understand why like Star Wars Outlaws could have like very immediately be a Star Warsy thing just by
Yep.
having the imagery. But like there's not like imagery I necessarily associate with Indiana Jones, and I don't think this is like fully set in places from the movies necessarily. So like how does it capture that if it doesn't really have that like iconography to go to?
So I don't necessarily think it's the world because the world is it's a realistic world. I think at one point you were
Yeah.
like Indiana Jones looks boring because it's historical places that look like historical places. It is.
What?
It it is. There's not that. But what I'm talking about is just the way that this character feels, the way that this
Hmm.
character interacts, the way that it feels like to play as this character in some situations just feels like what I would imagine being Indiana Jones feels like.
Gotcha.
Where it's
Okay.
running through a cave, where it's sneaking past guys, where it's just the dialogue. The dialogue in this is written to like a late 80s Indiana Jones movie like perfectly. It's done
Mhm.
better than Dial of Destiny, better than Crystal Skull. Like this is
Oh,
the
really?
best Indiana Jones dialogue and feel I've had since the original trilogy.
That's crazy. Like, I get well, on that note, if you could rank it like in your movies, like, could you like easily like kind of slot it in there? Or it's like just it's better than the most recent one, maybe not as good as the original trilogy, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would definitely say if you're looking for an Indiana Jones story, an Indiana Jones thing, it's easily I don't think it breaks into the original trilogy, but it's definitely like right up there with it. Like it is that good
Yeah.
in its Indiana Jones ness of it. And I
Mhm.
was very worried after the first trailer. You can't do Harrison Ford without Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm watching Shrinking as I'm playing this, which
Yeah.
has Harrison Ford in it. So I'm constantly getting like Harrison Ford dialogue from TV and then turning this game on. It's hard to tell.
Really?
Like
Is that
it is that good. Like there are certain times where it's like, I wonder if they just lifted that from a movie like that good.
yeah.
So I think that really, really does a lot for it, is just the feel of it. It's so good. I don't I don't want to spoil the first 15 minutes of this game, but I've
Yeah.
played it 4 times.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
The-
I'm aware of what it is, but yeah, it's
Okay.
that was a weird thing that like people were just kind of like casually. Oh, by the way, it's like I feel
I
like
know
that's a
I
cool
don't want to throw that
stuff.
out because it was like one of those like if you I'm not gonna throw it out there, but it's one of those things that you like slowly realize like, oh okay, I'm doing this. Now I'm doing oh no, am I doing this is
Yeah.
what's happening right now? And it almost feels like the first 15 minutes were like a proof of concept where it's like,
Mhm.
look. We made these 15 minutes. We're going to go present it to Lucasfilm. We're going to present it to these people and say, this is what we can do with Indiana Jones. And this
Yeah.
is what we did with this. We're going to make this into a full game. And it very much feels like that. And it's such a quick and easy end of like, if you had any trepidation about this being an Indiana Jones, if you had any hesitation about if we can do Harrison Ford justice, if you had any hesitation about what this game's going to be like to play, let us put all that aside for a second, play these 15 minutes, and you will be blown away.
That's funny. That reminds me of like the Final Fantasy VII remake opening. They're like, "You're in good hands.
Yes,
Like you can chill
yes.
out. Like, we did it. We did the thing."
It's just that rush of calm of like, oh, okay, you got me. You understand what we're doing. You
Yeah.
understand what I want. You understand the characters. You understand what we should be going for here. It's not like we need this big like bombastic opening where Indiana Jones is mowing people down or any of this other stuff. We don't need any of that. You know what you're looking for here. So
Mhm.
I think that is the most important thing with this game is that it feels that way. The story itself, very Indiana Jones. You're at your college, you're at Marshall College, you're hanging out. This big giant guy breaks in and steals something, and you go, that's weird. Why would he steal that? That seemed insignificant. I'm going to go hunt him down, and we're off on a globe-trotting adventure to punch Nazis. The villain in this, his name's Voss. He's like the classic, like, Hitler scientist guy of just like pure evil and like we're gonna use this and we're gonna do just pure evil. Like does really really great stuff. There are some really great back and forths with them because of course they've got to get in close contact. He's an archaeologist and he's an archaeologist. We got to have these conversations like I'm a better archaeologist than you. Just the dialogue between them is excellent. He sticks around and pops up like in the game as he should. It's never overbearing. It's just Voss has done so well in this as well. Just everything about this thing is so good.
I mean, that sounds awesome. I mean, it's really cool that they're able to capture. 'Cause it's like it is weird because like I keep thinking back to like what makes Indiana Jones Indiana Jones. Like it's really that character. Like
It's
that
Harrison Ford, yeah.
is the IP. That the IP is Indiana Jones. So it's like you really got to nail that. And then also the kind of the comic booky. Is it comic booky the right way? It is like that pulp novel sort of inspiration. It's not
Yeah,
comic, but it is that sort of
it
like
almost
that
it
kind
almost
of.
feels like an
Yeah.
it almost feels like an early version of like Marvel clips.
Sure.
Like it
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
has that feel to it where it's like it's kind of goofy, but like kind of silly, but like kind of serious, but like
Yeah.
we're joking, we're one-liners, it's always just kind of this very unique tone. I think is what always drew it to me. It's just fun, like that pulp novel, like you were saying. It's just that comic book pulp novel. It's fun. It's just a guy with a whip running around the world, like chasing down whatever random thing he happens to stumble upon this time. In this case, pieces of the Great Circle.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all there is to it. Don't need anything more fancy than that. So, story wise, nailed it. Where I kind of have some, not even bad parts, but just
Actual game, I assume at this point.
yeah. So the gameplay of this, it's kind of separated into two chunks. You're going into like tombs and going into like ancient spaces and all that. You've got that part which is very linear, very just kind of like okay, go down the hallway, do a puzzle. Go down the hallway, sneak past some Nazis. Go down the hallway, do a puzzle. Just very straightforward. And then you've got these very big open areas that you can kind of explore and play in. I do think the game gets a little boring and a little repetitive if you start doing the side stuff. I started doing a little bit because it does get kind of that, not to the same level, but that Ubisoft feeling of like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff I can go collect. Oh, there's a bunch of people who need help in this town. There's a bunch of people who want me to find this one thing for them around this area. You can get into that. I think the game's paced to play as like a linear adventure.
Okay.
And it feels like it's like, okay, but we need something more than just a linear adventure here. So we're going to put that in there. So I found when you get to these big open areas, which play very similar to Dishonored, which is very cool. Lots of sneaking around. Like if you get into combat, that's okay, but also like that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
I've heard them compared to Hitman as well, which I was like, interesting.
So, and here would be my concern with that. I haven't played much Hitman outside of like the maybe half hour like free demo years ago, and the stealth was just so obnoxiously difficult for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
This does not have that.
Sure. Okay.
This has the like, if you stand in front of a guy, a yellow circle slowly fills while he stares at you and goes, "What's that over there?"
Oh, that's like
Is
super
Dishonored
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like, boop, behind a box is like, must have missed it.
Like stealth game in quotes.
Yes. Which flawless in my book, no notes. I don't want this to be a hardcore stealth game. And I think that's kind of what they realized is like, there's a line between going super Hitman stealth and no stealth. And we kind of threaded a needle here of like, yeah, it's stealth, but like we're going to give you some big old windows to play with here. So I like that. I'm not good at stealth. I don't like taking 25 minutes to get across the street. So it worked really well for me. The rest of the combat is melee first person, which is the correct noise to make whenever you hear that. So
yeah,
it works fine for the most part when you're Yeah, when you're fighting just like your normal fascist, your normal Nazi, like no big issue. When you get to a bosses though, which basically just feel like bullet sponges but for punches, it's just like
That's really funny. Sure.
it's because it's just I mean like some of these guys I swear like the end boss I swear I punched that dude 35, 50 times before he
Yeah.
went down, and it's just like this combat is not good enough to hold up to a boss fight.
Yeah.
But that gamification, like we need some boss fights in here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that back and forth. There's one boss where you fight like a creature instead of a person. That one
Sure.
is very fun. But
Yeah.
fighting just a random like beefed up guy, again, I mentioned the giant comes in and steal. You fight like this giant dude, and it's just so much of a slog just trying to take this guy down. Of like punch, punch, punch. You have a stamina bar, so punch, punch, punch. My stamina's out. Okay, back up, back up, back up. Recharge. Punch, punch, punch. Dodge. Recharge stamina. Recharge stamina. It's a slog to get through.
What a bummer. I mean, I could definitely see that. But it's interesting, like, I mean, because you're thinking like, it's funny though. Indiana Jones does have boss fights like in the movies, but they're usually over pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a quick thing, and it's yeah. You do get guns too, but those are kind of throwaway. Like I do like
Yeah.
the fact that he can pick up a gun, but once that clip's gone, that gun's out.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's not like any like bullets. Like you're not stashing thousands of bullets on you, so you can use a gun. You have a handgun the whole time. Again, you can carry like no more than like 15 or 20 bullets at a time. And for whatever reason, guys also take like 3 bullets to put down. 5 punches,
Okay.
3 bullets. Do the math there. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the combat itself is kind of one of those where it's like we didn't quite know what to do with it. And they did a pretty good job of just making it just kind of enjoyable. I wouldn't say it's fun. I wouldn't say it's a great part of it, but it's
Sure.
passable. We can get through with this. There are some very great set pieces though, where you're
Okay.
like escaping falling, just these falling ruins that are falling all around you that are super fun to run out of. There's a couple other things like that where it's just very, very cool. Some great, great scenery. Like I know, again, I mentioned it before, you mentioned I'm not playing this, it just looks like boring historical stuff.
Mhm.
There's a couple when you get to, because we have to get to some sci-fi, some kind of mystical fantasy piece.
Yeah.
There's a couple scenes in that where you get to that and you're like, ooh, this actually looks really, really cool right now.
Oh,
So
that's fine. Yeah.
a little bit in there, but overall, it's great. The
Mhm.
last thing I want to talk about is one of my favorite moments, favorite
sorry.
mechanics in the history of video games.
Oh, yeah.
Jaw dropping for me, and how just like
Jaw dropping. All right.
jaw dropping, like literally like, oh my God, what just happened moments. You do your fighting, right? If you get knocked out, your hat falls off. So for those of you uninitiated with Indiana Jones, his hat is everything. Like this is like Captain America losing his shield levels of devastating if Indiana Jones is missing that hat.
Yeah.
And you get knocked out. The screen does the like black fade all around everything with a little bit in the middle. If you can crawl over and hit X to pick up your hat, it cuts to a cutscene of Indiana Jones popping that hat back on, dusting himself off, and you're at full health, ready to go. It is amazing.
That's really fun. That's cool.
And it is one of those things where it's just like in my mind, I watched, I was like, no notes. This, you nailed Indiana Jones. Like he needs his hat. We need the hat. The hat gets referenced constantly in every Indiana Jones things ever. It's referenced in here. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh my God, like this is genius. This is the most genius way to do health, is like just grab your hat, Indy, put it on. And it's just this like camera zoom in on his face where he smirks and dusts himself. It is like pinnacle
awesome.
Indiana Jones moment, and I loved it, and it was amazing.
That's really cool. I mean, I like that they found. I always think it's like interesting when like you take an IP and you do like, here's like cool stuff we can do within that, as opposed to like feeling bound by it, but like finding fun kind of creative ways to like mess with it. And that's really cool. No.
Yep. I mean, you get all the other stuff too. There's 3 too many Snake references in this, of him being afraid of Snake. I mean, you get all that too. Like some of it's overdone, but just that hat. That hat. Easily my favorite 20 seconds in video games this year when that hat popped on. So it's one of those games where I think if you love Indiana Jones, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. If you have no interest in Indiana Jones, I could very easily see you get fed up with some of the gameplay, just kind of feeling like, okay, what is this thing? But for those of us with a history with Indiana Jones, it is just, they nailed it. They did it. No notes. Cool. Great. Do more. But we are Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below. There's a link to support us on Coffee as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.